You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
Hey everybody, check out the Break the Bell podcast, where we believe your voice is your most powerful weapon. We're a weekly dose of our take on what's going on in the world, mixed with a side of history. Find us wherever podcasts are found or on social media handle at Break the Bell Pod. And most importantly, never stop talking.
Prepare yourself. You're on the run with Remso W. Martinez.
Well, hello there, folks. Not a voice you expected for On the Run with Remso W. Martinez, but it is, yes, Brian Nichols here from The Brian Nichols Show. Welcome to On the Run with Remso W. Martinez. I am filling in for our dear host. He is feeling a little under the weather. Don't know if he wants me to share this, but he got the vid. Oh, goodness. We're praying for our dear buddy Remso. But with that, thank you, Remso, for handing the reins over On the Run. I'm looking forward to having a conversation here with your audience and with you, the audience of On the Run. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about expanding freedom outside of politics. How can we go ahead and actually get freedom beyond this whole political realm we find ourselves in and actually get it into action? And I was given this topic by Remso, and it's interesting, right? Remso and I, as similar as we find ourselves to be at times, there's also a little bit of differences between us, and I think the way I'm taking this is, how do we get beyond looking at freedom from a perspective of policy or talking about it and actually live a free life? And I asked that kind of knowing the answer, because this is something that we've been digging into over at the Brian Nichols Show, specifically focusing on that of personal liberty, right? Personal freedom. How do you, as a person, how do you, as an individual, maximize your own personal freedom, your own personal liberty? And in turn, how does that reflect on freedom across the board? So when we're talking about expanding freedom beyond the realm of politics, I think it's important to first focus on, well, what's going to help change the conversation? And first it starts with us, right? We have to be living, breathing examples of what it means to live a truly free lifestyle. But with that, it's not just a libertine lifestyle, but truly one of liberty, and with that, personal responsibility. So holding yourself accountable, holding your family accountable, helping protect your family, being there for one another, standing up for morals, standing up for virtue. So being that best version of yourself will just inevitably help create a domino effect across the board in your greater family, your community. And how important would that be if you could see freedom actually impacting your life directly right now? Think about how that would reflect on those around you, seeing you be successful, but living and breathing the tenets of liberty and freedom through your own actions. And when we talk about selling liberty over my network, my goodness, don't worry, Chris, not taking over We Are Libertarians. No, on my show, the Brian Nichols Show, we're talking about how do we sell liberty, right? And we sell that liberty by creating value. So in this case, the value we're creating is a better version of ourselves. And how awesome is it to sell that version of yourself versus what the version of yourself prior to those around you, to show hey, this stuff works. This liberty stuff works. So that's the first part of it, right? Making ourselves the best version of ourselves to then be the best version of ourselves for our families and our communities. But then beyond just what can we do for ourselves, let's look at different avenues beyond politics where we can help really change the conversation. One of the areas that I have been identifying as a very successful means of changing the conversation has been that of the culture. Telling stories, having conversations with folks. Here's something that a lot of folks just don't want to acknowledge for whatever reason. And that is, and this is kind of in the Ben Shapiro thought, that the facts don't care about your feelings. We get that. We get it. Facts don't care about your feelings. But here's the truth. Feelings sell. Right? So if we're trying to relate to people and actually get freedom across to people in a different way than just regurgitating the books we've read, well, then it starts out with us approaching things in a different way by telling stories, right? By being able to appeal to those emotions. In sales, one thing we talk about, and we've been talking about this over on the Brian Nichols Show, is when you're trying to sell to someone and they're making that impulse decision, that true gut instinct when it actually comes down to deciding whether they're going to buy the product, the service, whatever it may be, that decision is made entirely on emotion, on feeling. And then after the fact is rationalized with logic and reason. Telling yourself, okay, I bought that car that had all the extra bells and whistles. Oh, I don't know if I should have done that. Well, now that I think about it, it has the seats that warm up, right? So if we have the seats that warm up, I live in a cold area, so I guess it's okay. I guess spending the extra bit of money on the car isn't that terrible, right? I got all the extra surround sound because I'm in my car all the time, so I listen to music all the time. So why not listen to the better audio quality, right? We rationalize, we explain away why we made the decision. So let's make it easier on ourselves. This is one of the things when we talk about marketing and sales are best friends, because marketing is pretty much helping just pre-frame people to be more open to the initial sales pitch, right? So I, in my day job, I lead a sales team, and one of the roles that my team plays are those trying to piquing interest. And how do we pique interest to get the person, the prospect we're talking to want to ask more questions? So inevitably, when we're talking about, reaching people through culture, what stories can we tell that will get people to ask more questions? To say, tell me more. Now, I think off the top of my head, I look at Richard Jewell. I just watched that over, here, this past holiday, and it was phenomenal from a storytelling perspective, showing how crooked and deceitful, in this case, the FBI was towards Richard Jewell in trying to frame him as the bomber at the Atlanta Olympics, solely with the goal of trying to complete their case. So in telling that story, right, now we are able to tell, in this case, a and obviously we are on the We Are Libertarians network, a pro-libertarian message, or at the very least a small L libertarian pro-individual liberty message through the culture that can resonate with people that we otherwise wouldn't be communicating with. So through the culture, right? Super important. What people like Matt Kibbe and his amazing group over at Free the People are doing. Being able to communicate these ideas and help people understand what it is that we actually believe in. What is it that the proponents of liberty believe, and how do we show the value, right? And this is one of the most important aspects, is showing how we are selling the value. Now, what will we see, right, when we're doing this as an immediate outcome? Will it be an immediate outcome? That's actually a question I know a lot of people will ask, and the answer is probably not. What we see, right, when we're selling liberty, it's not something that happens overnight. When we're trying to expand liberty into the culture, into society, it has to be a mindset change. You look at, how did same-sex marriage become essentially the law of the land? Oh, I mean, it was before the Supreme Court decision, Obergefell, right? It was a culture change. It was the culture accepting same-sex marriage as okay. Or at the very least, not as questionable as it was, right? So, what are libertarians going to do to help change the culture? It also goes beyond just going into the movies, right? I said the movies. I say it jokingly because, yes, that's what everybody thinks of, but you can do other things besides movies. What are we doing here? What are we doing here at the Brian Nichols Show and on the run? We're having these conversations, these long-form conversations about issues that people care about. And it's focusing on the issues that people care about that will actually lead us to long-term success. So the culture is great. We talked about the culture. We talked about ourselves, focusing on ourselves, making ourselves the best version of ourselves going forward. How about in society, living the don't hurt people, don't take people's stuff mentality, right? When we go out and we support those organizations that support what it means to be a pro-liberty, pro-freedom organization, then we are, in turn, helping the market work. We are, in turn, acting as market forces. So, like, right now, we're recording here on the Friday, the 29th of January, after we just watched the Game Stonks whole incident take place, which, whew, what a situation that's been, right? But it was an opportunity, not necessarily maybe to support something that we wanted to support, but watch, in turn, the market, in this case, react to something they didn't support. Now, was there politics based in this? Kind of, yeah, right. However, exclusively politics? No, it's a market force. An area, again, I think we absolutely need to focus on. And like, if you have been living a free lifestyle, like you've been showing what it means to have freedom impact your life for the better, then don't you kind of have an obligation to tell people about it? So here, I'll be vulnerable. I'll kind of tell my story, right? So back in the day, around 10 years ago, yours truly here, I was hefty. I was just about 15 pounds short of 400 pounds. And it was not only physically limiting my personal freedom, which, I mean, that itself is a whole thing. But mentally, I mean, it was a lot, right? To know that you would walk into the classroom and have to look at those really uncomfortable desks, the ones that the piece of like the front that you'd write on, like the actual desk part was attached to the chair. And I would look at that gap and I'd think, would I fit? Now I'm 6'5". I carry it well. Like I've always been a muscular dude. But I mean, 6'5", 85 pounds. You can only call yourself so muscular to a certain point, right? And I realized how little I was able to really do because of my physical limitations holding me back, but also the mental limitations holding me back. And when I realized that it was something I could control, or at least start to work towards controlling, that was when I got this like sense of enthusiasm. Because how easy is it to like lose that sense of enthusiasm? And if you think about it, right, if you're honest, that's kind of what stops people. I mean, I saw a really funny quote the other day. It's never your successful friends who are posting communist quotes. I mean, boom. Really accurate, right? A little bit too on the nose. But like, yeah. If you have no motivation, if you have no umption in your gumption to get going in the morning because of those restrictions in your own life, well, yeah, you have a negative outlook. I mean, I'm not going to, pick on any people in particular, but in my own personal life, I see it firsthand. There are loved ones who I see, they're living a life that I don't know how they're living it. One of just kind of going through the motions. You all know somebody like that, I'm sure of it. And you kind of, you wish you could help them. But then there comes that need to help yourself. Right? Like, and you can't turn that on off for somebody else. They have to want to do it themselves. You can't find the other person's spark. It doesn't work that way. I see too often, and maybe this is one thing in politics in general, it does make sense when you look at how we approach different political issues. But our friends on the left tend to look at government as a means of helping get that spark. But it's not. It's not its role. It never has been government's role to give the spark. I mean, if there ever is an argument for government in general, what is it? It's to be that referee. Now, Dave Smith had a phenomenal breakdown of this kind of myth of the government being the referee. And it's funny because you see it so obvious. People calling out the government not being the referee and actually being a corrupt player in the game itself. But our friends on the left still think that you can help take over that referee or influence the referee. And in this case, to help not just call balls and strikes, but to actually help keep the game going, almost like in the UFC with Big John McCarthy helping facilitate the fight, saying, "Come on, gentlemen, work." That's what they're looking the government to do. That's not the government's job. There's no incentive structure in place for the government to be that spark, right? Besides just this idea of communal pressure. But you don't need government to be that communal pressure unless your communal pressure is that with a gun. And I'm sorry, if you want to be that person using government to be the enforcer with the guns. Do you want that? I don't. I'll tell you why I don't want that, because I know as soon as we give that government the guns to enforce whatever moral good we're saying it is that week, you know darn well it's going to be used against you. Because if you have this democratic society that we have today, that we all praise so much, all it takes is that 50+1 majority to switch sides, and then this monster that has been used to squash dissidents can now be used to squash you. So, with our final 10 minutes here, expanding freedom beyond politics. I lost weight. Yeah. That was the end of that story. I realized I never finished. I ended up going on this venture to lose weight. I ended up dropping about 180 pounds at the actual like max weight loss, which was wild in its own regard.
But I say all that, because it is liberating, the chance, the freedom to be able to now live your life as you would want to, because you were no longer being constrained by those limiting factors. And I think that, for me, was easily one of the biggest moments in my life where I realized the importance of these ideas that we talk about, right? And this is something I think we need to get better at as a group, as a larger liberty movement. I know the irony, right? our collective group movement needs to get better at doing this, but we do need to get better at embracing libertarian ideals, small l, not libertine. And if you get upset at that phrasing, then I'm sorry. That's part of the reason that we're not connecting with folks, because it does require us to show that with this crazy idea of personal responsibility, individual liberty, right, that society won't go into absolute ruin, which I know people are surprised to hear that is not the end game of a libertarian society. How about that? So, yes, it does go across many different areas, expanding this personal liberty. So Remso, as he's recovering from the vid, I pray he's good to go. And with that, if you're enjoying what we're doing here on today's episode of On the Run with Remso Martinez, well, then you're in store for that and more over on my show, the Brian Nichols Show, which is a part of the greater We Are Libertarians network. And to what Remso asked me to do here at the show is to, yes, sometimes look at how can we talk about this stuff outside of the realm of politics. Because too often, I think, as we wrap up here, right, one of the things I focus on, as I've said many a time on my show, is sales. And part of sales is communicating with people that sometimes, more often than not, are adverse to our messaging, our ideas, just because when you start to go in through the mindset of, well, I'm not like you, I'm not part of your tribe, the flags go up. And it's on us to overcome those initial objections, right? When we're talking about sales, one of the key aspects is always that of overcoming objections. And the best way to overcome those objections is to actually understand, well, where's the objection coming from? And in this case, I think we have done a not good job in the greater liberty movement of trying to understand where the objections are coming from folks outside of, yes, our confines of our Facebook groups, right? We too often get stuck inside our Facebook message groups and think that we have the right idea. We think we know what people need to care about, and so often we're so ready to tell them. But until we actually go and have that conversation with them and ask them what their problem is, and be ready to understand what's the true objection. Why is it that they're not taking that first step, right? So when we're looking to actually get liberty into action, we can get liberty into action outside of politics, and actually it goes hand in hand. We can't move liberty forward in policy without it first being moved forward in the culture, in areas outside of the traditional realms that we would think of when we're talking about the ideas of liberty, freedom, personal responsibility. Now it's going into more of what can we do without having, the government help us. And I say help us very loosely. So, folks, did you enjoy today's episode of On the Run with Brian A. Nichols, not Remso W. Martinez? A little different there in the name, and a little different in the delivery. Obviously, Remso, he's doing these great episodes every single week here on the We Are Libertarians network for his amazing podcast, and I could not begin to try to fill the shoes that Remso has here, doing great work, not only building up his empire, but also having great conversations with amazing people, ranging from the folks like Hannah Cox to my goodness, Ben Stein, and all those in between, right? And this, oh, by the way, if you didn't get the chance yet to check out his awesome conversation with yours truly, also with our good mutual friend Gary Collins, where we talk about aliens. Yes, aliens. Pretty much it's confirmed. Aliens are here. Thanks U.S. government for actually telling us the truth. Last year, 2020, when the world was on fire, they're like, just toss this in. End of the year, just the subtle confirmation that yes, aliens have in fact visited planet Earth. That's fun. So anyways, yes, what we're doing here on the run today with yours truly, Brian Nichols here, over my show, the Brian Nichols Show, is having conversation with folks really focused on talking about the issues that are really driving right now the conversations in America, and focusing on those issues, but in the way that it actually pertains to real people, being able to communicate the ideas, and really the value in these ideas, painting that better tomorrow for your average person. That's what we're trying to do here at the Brian Nichols Show by having folks on the show who are able to articulate the visions, right? To articulate the messaging. That's what we need to be doing more of, not just, in greater podcasting, but also in the greater liberty movement. Don't feel that you have to be the one person who can give all the answers. That's not your job, nor should you want it to be your job. If you're good at one particular thing, then be the best version of yourself when it comes to actually doing that one particular thing. And the more you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, the focus on becoming the best version of whatever that particular skill is, being the best at it, then guess what? You are going to become that trusted advisor for others out there in that one particular area. And then you can become that expert that goes out and talks to people about this particular issue. And believe it or not, you don't need to be the jack of all trades, right? Because you do, in fact, end up being the master of none. And we need to instead embrace the ideas of personal differences, right? Embrace the ideas that we all have different approaches. We all have different perspectives. But at the end of the day, the approach that's going to find the most success is that of being a problem solver, right? Showing people that we care, but also showing that we walk the walk as we talk the talk. So with all that being said, folks, thank you for strapping in for a different episode of On the Run with Remso W. Martinez. It has been an absolute pleasure. I will be filling in again coming up here on the next episode as well, where I'll be answering the question, why libertarianism? Why liberty, right? And it's going to be a little bit of a different conversation, but one that will absolutely be worth the time. So, folks, if you enjoyed this different episode of On the Run, well, do me a favor, go ahead and follow me on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Minds.com at @BNicholsLiberty. If you enjoyed the show, email me, Brian at brian@nicholsshow.com. Also, if you do find yourself enjoying the program of The Brian Nichols Show, please do me a favor. On top of doing your traditional rating and review here for the amazing On the Run with Remso W. Martinez, while you're there, head over, give The Brian Nichols Show a 5-star rating and review. Tell folks what value you're getting from the show and why you decide to become a subscriber. And with that, also, please make sure you go ahead and wish Remso well wishes. Hopefully he is feeling better as he gets the vid out of his system. So with that being said, folks, thank you so much for joining us here on The Run with Remso W. Martinez. I am your fill-in host, Brian Nichols. We'll see you next week.
You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com, like The Chris Spangle Show, Liberty Explained, The Brian Nichols Show, The Boss Hog of Liberty, Freedom Strips with Keaton Tucker, On the Run with Remso Martinez, Gingerarchy with Tricia Stewart-Mann, Upward, Libertarian Activism, and Now Hear This. Tune in now and we're going to help you sound smarter when talking with your friends.